come from Geordieland, but the other ones don't know. I live in a little village 10 miles outside of Newcastle, and where I live, it is rough. And I mean rough. You wake up in the morning, your wheelie bins up on bricks and the wheels are off. It's that rough, the local takeaway has had that many bricks put through his window, he's built an extension on the back. With it being rough, it also ends up as a burglar's paradise. And I mean a burglar's paradise. The local Catholic Church is installed another 42 confession boxes, so they can confess their sins. And the last 6 boxes have got a sign above the door. Express checkout, 6 items or less. Little Jody went on holiday to Jerusalem with his mother-in-law. And when he was there, his mother-in-law died. So he went to the British Embassy and he says, right, he says, what's the procedure for getting my mother-in-law home? Well, he says, Jody says, it'll cost you £5,000 to get your mother-in-law from here to the UK to get buried. But if you bury her here, it'll only cost you 50 quid. He says, oh, to hell with that. He says, it doesn't matter what it costs, I want my mother-in-law taken from here to the UK to get buried. Well, he says, you must think an awful lot of your mother-in-law to spend that much money. He says, money is no object. He says, I heard a story that there's a man died here, and 3 days later he rose from the dead. I don't want to take a bloody chance. A Catholic father was on his local rounds visiting his parishioners, and he called at little Beatrice's house, who used to be the church organist. So he knocks on the door, Beatrice invites him in. I just take a seat, Father. She said, I'll make you a cup of tea or a cup of coffee. When he was sitting there, he noticed an old Hammond organ in the corner. So he gets up to go and have a look at it. When he gets there, he sees this thing on the top of the organ, and it was a condom. Just then he heard Peter's coming back, so he rushed back to his, sitting with his cup of tea, and he says, Peter says, I've got to ask you this. He says, what is that on the Hammond organ? Oh, she says, that's brilliant, Father. She says, I was in the park the other day, and I found this little package, and it says, place on the organ, it'll stop the spread of diseases. And I haven't had a cold all winter. There's an old lady went to the doctors. She says, doctor, she says, I'm struggling terrible from constipation. She says, I spent ages in the toilet. Well, he says, are you taking anything for it? Well, she said, take me knitting in with it. There's an old fella who loves playing golf, but his eyesight's getting a little bit worse, so every time he teed off, he's seen the ball away, but he couldn't see where it landed. So he went to the doctors and told him his situation, and he sent him to the opticians. Tested his eyes as well. What's wrong with your eyes, mate? He says, just your ears. Well, he says, I can't see where my ball lands. He says, look, he says, advertise for a caddy. Somebody with better eyesight than yours, and you see where it goes. So he advertises for a caddy, knock on the door 2 or 3 days later, and there's this little old fella in his 80s. He says, what do you want? He says, I've come for the caddy's job. He said, I want somebody who can see. He says, I've got eyes like a hawk. There's nothing wrong with my eyes, I've got eyes like a hawk. Right, meet me at the club tomorrow and we'll try out. First tee, tees off in the distance. You see where my ball landed? I sure did. Right, that's the way. Walking up the fairway, he says, I'm sure you seen where my ball landed? I sure did. But where is it? Don't know, I forgot. Have you just got it? This chap took his wife out for their 25th wedding anniversary. had a slap up meal, bottles of wine, the whole lot. Comes back in the taxi and gets out of the taxi and I walk up the driveway. She says, Fred, she says, that was a lovely evening. She says, real surprised. She says, I love you. She says, it's not over yet. What do you mean it's not over? She says, I've got this for you. He puts his hand in his pocket. He brings out the little box, purple leather box. She says, that's for you. That's for me. Oh, I love you. She opens the box and there's 2 pills in the box. She says, what's these 2 pills? He says, they're for you. What are they? He says, they're paracetamols. Paracetamols, I haven't got a headache. He said, I've got you. A little chap goes to the doctor and he says, Doctor, he says, I've got a problem. He says, well, what's your problem? He says, my privates have turned green. He says, what? He says, my privates have turned green. He says, let's have a look, drop your strides, let's have a look. So he drops his strides and examines them. He says, yeah. He says, have you heard the expression cauliflower ears? He says, yes, I have. Well, he says, I think you've got brothel sprouts. Little old lady goes to the doctor. She says, Doctor, she says, can you have a look at my knees? She says, I've got awful pains in my knees. So, has a look at her knees, moving them from left to right, up, down. He says, well, can't feel anything wrong. He says, are you doing something which you should be telling me about? She says, well, I don't know how to explain this. He says, go on, I'm a doctor, I know what you're talking about. Well, she says, every night, my husband and I have sex, doggy ways on the floor in the sitting room. He says, that's got to be it. But he says, Mrs. Jones, you do know there's different ways of having sex. She says, oh yes, I know that, doctor, but not when you're watching the bloody telly. One man sitting in the house, and he gets up and he goes and puts his coat on. His wife says, where you going? She says, I'm going to the doctor's to get some of them Viagra pills. She says, just a minute. She does away and she comes back putting her coat on. Where you going? She says, I'm coming with you. What for? She said, if you're going to start using that rusty old thing again, I'm going to give a tetanus shot. There's a young, slim, blonde girl walking along the high street. Black two-piece suit, pencil slim skirt, split up the back, high-heel shoes, dangly earrings. And she walks into this jeweler's shop. And she's looking around at the jewellery, admiring it, and then she spies this necklace in the counter display. So she bends down to have a look at the necklace in the counter display. And as she bends down, she passes wind. Looking around to see if anyone was looking, slightly embarrassed. And as she turns around, there's the male assistant standing behind. Good morning, madam. Can I help you with anything? He says, yes, how much is that necklace in the counter display? Well, he said, madam, if you farted just looking at it, you'll shake yourself and I'll tell you what the price is. Little Johnny's sitting in the afternoon watching the racing on the telly, and his son comes in from school. He says, Dad, can you help us with my homework, please? He says, well, I'll see what I can do for you. He said, well, my teacher's asked me to find out the difference between theory and reality. Theory and reality. Right, go upstairs and ask your mum if she was given £1 million, would she sleep with every man in our street? So he goes upstairs, asks his mum, comes back down. Yes, Dad, my mum said if she was given £1 million, she would sleep with everybody in our street. Right? Go and ask your sister the same question. Where's it goes? Ask your sister. She says, yes, Dad, my sister said if you give her £1 million, she would sleep with every man in our street. Well, he says, so there it is. He says, in theory, we should have £2 million in the bank. But he says, in reality, we're living with a couple of slappers. Then Geordie's wife died, and I decided to go and pay her a visit and pay me condolences. I went in the house and big chap, having up for a couple of cans of beer. I said, right, Geordie, I've got to be on my way. He says, if you tell us where your wife's grave is, I'll pay my last respects. He says, she's in the garden. I said, what? He says, I buried her in the garden. No, you're not. He said, I buried her in the garden. Come and have a look. So I went out to the back garden, and sure enough, a pile of soil in the garden, with a bum sticking out one end. I says, Geordie, you've buried her in the garden, but you can't leave her like that. You haven't covered her up. He says, Eddie, he says, when she was alive, she was no use, not an ornament for me. Now she's dead, she's some use. I said, what do you mean you're some use? She says, I've got somewhere to park my bike. I'll leave you with this one. Old George decided to get married to Mavis. Now, old George, being what he was, he liked everything written down, so there's no memory loss and everything had to be written down. So he said, right, he says, we'll start off with finances. And you're writing this down. He says, right, your state pension and my state pension and go into one fund. He says, that'll pay for household stuff, groceries, petrol money, pocket money. Right? Written it down. And he says, my private pension and your private pension could go towards holidays, birthdays, Christmas boxes. Right. Satisfied with that? Yeah, that's all right. Right, now we'll go to household chores. He says, you can do the washing, you can do the dishes, you can do the ironing, but I'll iron my own shirts, I like my own shirts ironed. And he says, outside, he says, I'll look after the garden, I'll wash the car, and keep the place tidy. Right? Now he says, unfortunately, I've got to ask you this question, the physical side. He says, how often do you want sex? And she thinks a bit. She said, I think I would like sex infrequently. So he's writing it down. She would like sex infrequently. Infrequently, is that one word or two? Think about it. Right, that's it. I'll say good night. Thanks for listening. God bless.